Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Vicky broadcast on 87.5 FM. It is January 2nd, and today, the article I have to start out with is from usnews.com. I'm not sure if this is a reliable source, but I'm just going to go with it, right? I didn't check it on Snopes or anything like that, but the headline refers to the current average cost of a used car in the United States of America being $29,000. Right, this is of course a peak. It's a high. Has nothing to do with like any past events with presidents or anything like that. This is simply just talking about the inflation, as well as the supply shortage of motor vehicles, especially used ones. But I just want everyone to remember a time before any of this, election nonsense, or even before the COVID, right? All the way back to 2009. With a little program called Cash for Clunkers, right? Under Obama, we had this genius idea, or he had this genius. It wasn't him. I think it was some environmental organization or think tank that had this genius idea. Why don't we destroy all the old cars that aren't as fuel efficient as we'd like them to be? So what they did was they bought up, using taxpayer dollars, they bought up and destroyed 690,000 used cars. 690,000. Using taxpayer dollars. And I understand that these were old cars at the time, but I'm sure a lot of them would still be around today. And the ridiculous thing is that estimates show, right, that today, what those cars would be worth today during the car shortage and during the inflation that we're having right now, that would be worth $10 to $20 billion worth of automobiles were destroyed in Cash for Clunkers. 10 to 20 billion. How are we at a point where destroying perfectly functioning automobiles is a government policy, right? Where the government policy is to destroy products that are working absolutely fine. How is this what economic policy has led to? It's absolutely ridiculous, at least to me. I think that there needs to be a complete reset in terms of how our government operates in an economic field, right? Because pretty much we're at this point where we have this idealism, right? This liberal idealism of what is the perfect society. And in their minds, a perfect society, there's no cars that guzzle gas, there's no cars that are not, 100% electric. There's no sort of machinery or building that is going to create CO2, because CO2 is going to be this horrible thing that's going to destroy the planet. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm simply saying, at what cost? At what cost will we be willing to... what cost are we willing to take on in order to forever destroy CO2 and its production and its being sent out into the atmosphere and stuff like that? What cost is... I think this needs to be asked of progressives and of people who are environmentalists. What cost are you willing to pay? Because I think the answer for most of them is they are willing to pay any cost. They are willing to pay any cost of human life, of human suffering, of proficiency, of efficiency, and of any sort of financial or nationalistic cost in order to achieve their goal of zero carbon emissions. Right? If they're willing to throw away $10 to $20 billion just on a whim, right, in 2009, then what is to say that they're not willing to do, $100 billion or $1 trillion? I mean, even in the infrastructure bill, we saw a lot of energy initiatives being taken on and stuff like that costed literally hundreds of billions of dollars. So is it not very, very likely that they would be willing to do this again and again and again? The other story I have today isn't really a story, but is instead just a little thing I noticed in the news circulation in the UK. And that is, if you look up UK news, or if you just go on a VPN from like a UK-based VPN and look at Google or Google News, what you'll see is a bunch of headlines by My London, The Guardian, and the BBC, and it's all about COVID. It's all about COVID restrictions, the expansion of COVID, books about COVID that were written by authors, stuff like that. But if you go to page 2, which no one ever does, right? But if you go to page 2, then you start getting stuff like Sky News, And you know what they're talking about? You know what Sky News has chosen to talk about? Wow, they chose to talk about the fact that the UK, in fact London in particular, is going through the highest rate in 2021. It went through the largest spike in teenage murders in 100 years. And I'm just shocked that not a single news source, not a single mainstream news source decided that, oh yeah, this is front page worthy. The fact that 2021 saw the largest spike in teenage murders in history for the United Kingdom, and I say in 100 years, just because I'm not sure how long they've been recording it, but literally, if you look at the rate back from I believe 1920s just to today, it spikes. It spikes in the last literally 10 years. In the last 10 years, it spikes. And in 2021, it reaches an all-time high, as if this isn't an issue worth talking about. At the end of the day, if you look at what's going on in London in particular, and I think I can't remember the name of the other city. I think it was Brussels or something. I'm not gonna say because I'm not 100% sure. But London in particular, they're having what it used to be called the zip code wars. But they are literally having a full-scale gang war at this point in time, with quite literally dozens of teenagers being killed in the crossfire, or being the killers, or being the targets of the killings, again and again and again. Right? And this is in a country that has completely made it almost impossible to get weapons of any kind, knives, let alone guns. And yet you see these teenagers like killing each other with swords, right? With it's like medieval in the United Kingdom right now. They're killing each other with swords. Yeah, some of them end up getting guns illegally imported or through other means, but it's a lot of people stabbing, right? Like knives and swords. It's ridiculous. I mean, I think a lot of people saw. I can't remember how many years back it was, but some guy ended up getting his hands cut off. Some African migrant got his hands cut off by some Muslim immigrants in London, because I think they were Pakistani or whatever, but the African migrant was stealing from them, and so they did the Quran punishment. They cut off his hands. So they've literally gone back to the medieval era in the United Kingdom with their leadership, because at the end of the day, it's somewhat of the composition of their nation, a little bit, but I think a lot of it is just the fact that their current government is not willing to prosecute crimes, and the only crimes that they are even concerned about at all aren't gang related. They are all simply regulation related, as in, oh, is this person maintaining social distancing? Oh, does this person have a permit for whatever weapon they have, right? That's what they're concerned about. They're not, right? Because at the end, the media outlets in the United Kingdom and the United Kingdom's government are not at all concerned about these gang killings. They aren't. They don't care. I mean, just today, the debate that they were having, you thought at the beginning of January, the Parliament would be talking about, oh shoot, what about all that gang violence that happened last year? No. Instead, they're talking about. I think they're right now talking about an immigration initiative in which they're going to take a quarter of a million new migrants, right? Because that's really been helping their country advance, instead of sending it back to the medieval era with the people getting their hands cut off. I mean, I'm laughing a little bit here just because of how ludicrous it is, but it's happening. This is Europe now. I mean, in France, you saw those series of beheadings of people that were talking about Allah getting their head cut off. Unfortunate. Anyway, so a little bit back to the Cash for Clunkers story, just because I just got an update from that. Yes, it would be. I think the estimates are right now $20 billion worth of used cars were destroyed, and of course that's what current prices. I know this is very biased for me to do, is to use current prices considering they're so inflated, but still it's fun. Well, it's tragic. It's economically it's a travesty. It should be in any other presidency besides early 2000s, right, 21st century presidencies, this would be a mark that would pretty much demean any president to an economic failure. But nowadays, it's just like a minor footnote. It's like, oh yeah, this one guy destroyed 690,000 cars. I mean, since when was an economic or environmental stimulus plan related to destroying things instead of building them? For real. But anyway, folks, we've reached the 10-minute mark. I thank you all for tuning in to 87.5 FM with the Vicky broadcast, and I will see you all tomorrow.